Today is January 16, 2023. My name is Rob Carr of Kalamazoo Right to Life, and this is Pro-Life Week. Well, some discouraging news coming from Lansing, from the Capitol building in Lansing. The Democrats who now control the chamber have introduced House Bill 4006 that would repeal our 1931 law banning abortions throughout all 9 months of pregnancy. So let's go back a little bit here. Back in November, during the midterms, as we all remember, Michigan voters approved Proposal 3 that would add new language to the Michigan Constitution, guaranteeing the right to abortion, basically through viability. And then it would also, there's all those loopholes, these unnamed categories that may still qualify. The parental consent would be repealed, informed consent would be gone, a ban on state funding abortions would be gone, waiting periods would be gone. Most likely, the right to have sex reassignment surgeries for minors would probably be included in this. But the way it's worded is, the voters passed the referendum to put it in the Constitution. Well, now the legislature has to go and put teeth to that referendum in the form of legislation. So here now is phase one. The ban on our 1931 law, legalizing abortion through fetal viability. And we have to look at reality. In November, the Democrats took control of the House and the Senate, and obviously Gretchen Whitmer won re-election as governor. So most likely, they will pass this bill and she will sign it. Is there a guarantee? No. In politics, there are no guarantees. Miracles can happen. I definitely believe that miracles can happen. But tragically, the Democratic Party has really become the party of death. And whether it's at the state level or especially at the national level. So, I just have to believe tragically that this bill will pass. There will not be enough Republicans to stop this from passing. So that's phase one, and I expect phase two to come shortly with another bill that perhaps clicks off some of those items like parental consent or waiting periods or tax funding for abortions. So look to see some of these tragic results of the misplaced vote that Michigan's voters made a horrible mistake back in November. Horrible mistake. Last Wednesday, I tape this little program on Mondays and Wednesdays. Well, I did a taping, and then about an hour or two later, I saw in the news that the House of Representatives in Washington voted to approve the Born Alive Abortion Survivors Protection Act. The vote was 221 to 210, so it passed by 11 votes. The bill is pretty simple. If a baby survives an abortion, the doctor is required to implement life-saving treatment for that little baby, who is now a U.S. citizen, because the baby is alive and is a person. And if you're born in our country and you are a person, you are a U.S. citizen. So, these children may live an hour, they may live a week, they may live 70 years. At this point, there's no way necessarily of knowing, but the doctor is required to administer medical life-saving treatment. And if that abortion clinic does not have the capability to do that, then the clinic staff must transport that baby to a local hospital where that child can receive treatment. And here again, the baby may not live. the baby may not live. But then again, that baby might live. We've heard about cases where people have been aborted, they have survived, and they have gone into adulthood, and they've lived productive lives. So to categorically say that there is absolutely no guarantee that these children will not die, that is not true. That is just not true. But what is, to me, most distressing is every Republican voted pro-life on that bill. Every Republican voted pro-life. One Democrat voted pro-life. Henry Cuellar, the pro-life congressman from South Texas. And he has been a fairly consistent pro-life voter. I mean, he's not 100%, but compared to his colleagues in the Democratic caucus, he's very pro-life. And I thank God for Henry Cuellar. But there are 210 Democrats in the House. And they all, except for Cuellar, they all voted pro-abortion. And they kind of called this bill extremists. How can it be extreme if you want to protect a baby who has survived an abortion? Because the baby, like I said, the baby is now a U.S. citizen entitled to constitutional rights. Okay, so among these 210 House members, 65 of them are Catholics. Right now, after the midterms, there are 66 Democrats in the House who are Catholic. And one of them, Henry Cuellar, is pro-life. One of the 66. So there are 65 pro-abortion Catholic Democrats in the House. And every single one of those 65 voted pro-abortion. And I tell you, how is that possible? I'm speaking as a non-Catholic. How on earth can these 65 legislators consistently vote pro-abortion and yet are not kicked out of the Catholic Church? Okay, this is a free country. We all have our rights to think as we want, to do as we want, to vote as we want. And these Catholic legislators have the right to vote pro-abortion. They do. I'm not denying that right. But the religious organization they belong to also has rights and privileges. There should be a privilege to being a Catholic or to be a Presbyterian or a Lutheran or a Muslim or an Orthodox Jew. If you're going to be a part of a religious organization, you should adhere to that religious denomination. I mean, that seems kind of basic, I think. If you don't agree with that church, then find a church that you agree with and vote accordingly. Well, the Catholic Church is pro-life. And these 65 Catholic Democrats are not in sync with their church. And for the life of me, why hasn't the church kicked them out? I mean, excommunication seems to be the logical next step for people who've been voting pro-abortion, for some of these people, for decades. If the KKK, let me see this right here. If somebody belonged to the KKK and they were a member of a certain church, shouldn't that church be able to kick that person out? If their racist position is so strong that they are members of the Klan, I should think that church should boot that person out. Willingly, gladly, enthusiastically. If Adolf Hitler was born and raised Catholic, I'm not sure. I mean, he obviously was not very committed to the church, but he was born a Catholic in Catholic Austria in the 1880s. I'd like to think that the Catholic Church would have kicked him out at least in the 1920s. For sure in the 1930s, when his anti-Semitic policies and racial purity policies were more than evident. They should have kicked him out. Well, obviously, it's water under the bridge now, and the church didn't, because I don't think the church really had the teeth to do that at that time. But in hindsight, it's always 2020. But the church today should be able to tell its members that they need to adhere to a certain standard. Abortion is not just an issue, one of many issues in our country. It's not. In the 1850s, slavery was not just one of many issues. It was the key issue that divided our country. It defined who we were as Americans. Are we going to be a country that had bonded slaves, indentured slaves, generational slavery? Or are we going to be a country that liberates black slaves and gives them freedom and citizenship and the right to vote? Well, obviously the Civil War ended that discussion. Abortion has killed over 63 million innocent unborn babies in the last 50 years. And that's just not in America. That's just in America. Think of the hundreds of millions of babies aborted in China since their one-child policy started back in the early 1980s. Millions of babies have died all over the world. This is not just an American issue. It's a world crisis. It is the greatest human rights holocaust in the history of humanity. It just is. The unborn child has been targeted by abortion lobby, by doctors, by feminists. Society has turned a blind eye to the unborn baby. And somehow all the rights are given to the mother. And the baby is relegated to be a non-entity, kind of like how the Jews were treated at Auschwitz, in the concentration camps, or how blacks were treated in America. You're not citizens. You're only half citizens. You're a subhuman. Especially in Nazi Germany, you were a subhuman if you were Jewish. Well, the unborn child is a human being, a member of the human race, deserves all the protections of life. Shame on these Catholic Democrats in the House for voting pro-abortion, putting politics above their own eternity in hell. Because there will be judgment for how they have voted. There will be judgment. To me, that's pretty clear by reading my Bible. And shame on the Catholic Church for slow walking on this issue of kicking these people out. The bishops have struggled denying Joe Biden communion. And, this has been like a 2-year issue now. How do we deal with Joe Biden? He's our president. He's our practicing Catholic who's in favor of abortion rights. Good grief. Get rid of the guy. Take a stand to not just deny him communion, kick him out of the Catholic Church. Kick all these Catholic Democrats who pretend to be Catholics when they are not. They need to be removed. With that, I will let you go. I will see you next time.